November 7th, 1952, 11:43 p.m., Copacabana basement, New York City. Frank Sinatra stared at a letter. Columbia Records, contract terminated. The lawyer's ink was still wet. 9 years, gone. Upstairs, 843 people waited. They'd paid $12.50 each to hear the man who made Bobby Soxers faint. What they didn't know, 2 nights ago, Sinatra's voice cracked so badly on live radio that CBS cut to emergency commercial. The Daily News headline, Sinatra's voice gone, career over at 37. MGM dropped him yesterday. His agent stopped calling. His publicist quit at lunch. His own lawyer sent a memo. Recommend bankruptcy within 60 days. $1.2 million in debt. Alimony to Nancy. The IRS breathing down his neck. And Ava Gardner, his wife of barely a year, was in Africa filming Mogambo with Clark Gable. Last phone call 3 days ago, her voice cold. Frank, maybe it's time to think about teaching. Voice lessons, something stable. Teaching, like some washed-up nightclub singer. But the voice was the real killer. 2 weeks ago, middle of Embraceable You at this same club, his vocal cords hemorrhaged. Not a crack, not a rasp. His voice shattered like glass hitting concrete. The house doctor, a man named Rosenbaum, who'd seen everything, went pale. Mr. Sinatra, you need 6 weeks complete vocal rest. Sing before then. You might never sing again. Sinatra lasted 4 days of silence, 4 days of headlines. Where's Frank? Has been hides while Ava parties. So he booked the Copa. 5 nights, $5,000 total. Not even close to what he used to make, but it was something. Proof he still existed. Except now, standing in this basement with cracked linoleum and liquor crates, his throat felt like broken glass. He tried warming up an hour ago, got through half of Night and Day before his voice gave out completely. His pianist, Bill Miller, just shook his head and walked out. That's when Jules Podell came down. The Copa manager, short, thick, mob connections, zero patience. He looked at Sinatra, looked at the letter, looked at the glass of whiskey in Sinatra's hand. Frank, I got a packed house. You gonna sing or not? Sinatra's jaw tightened. I'll sing. Can you? Silence. Podell lit a cigar. Because if you can't, I got Tony Bennett's number. He's 20 minutes away. They'll forget they even bought tickets for you. Forget. Past tense. Like Sinatra was already gone. Sinatra set the glass down so hard it cracked. I said I'll sing. Podell shrugged, walked back upstairs, and Sinatra stood there alone, surrounded by smoke and silence, and realized something he'd forgotten in 12 years of fame. What desperation actually felt like. In 43 minutes, he'd walk on that stage and deliver the worst performance of his life. Every note strained, every high note cracked, every breath a struggle. The audience would sit in embarrassed silence. Variety would call it a tragic spectacle. But 3,000 miles away in Los Angeles, one man would hear about it on the radio. And that man, Dean Martin, would pick up the phone and do something nobody else in Hollywood would even think to do. 12:26 a.m. The lights went down. The crowd went quiet. Jules Podell's voice boomed through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, the Copacabana is proud to present Mr. Frank Sinatra. Polite applause. Not the screams, not the fainting, just polite. Sinatra walked on stage, tuxedo perfectly pressed, hair slicked back, but his hands were shaking. The spotlight hit his face, and for a second, he froze. 843 faces staring at him, some curious, some pitying, some already checking their watches. Bill Miller started the intro to I've Got You Under My Skin. Sinatra gripped the microphone stand, opened his mouth, and sang. The first note cracked, not badly, but enough. A woman in the front row winced. Sinatra pushed through the verse, but every high note felt like swallowing broken glass. His breath control, the thing that made him famous, was gone. He was gasping between phrases like a drowning man. Halfway through the song, a man in the back coughed. Loud, deliberate. A few people laughed. Not at a joke. At him. Sinatra finished. Scattered applause. He went straight into Night and Day. Worse. His voice cracked 3 times in the first chorus. A waiter dropped a tray of glasses in the back. The crash echoed through the room. Nobody was even pretending to listen anymore. By the third song, people were talking. Actual conversations. Over his singing, Jules Podell stood at the bar, arms crossed, face dark. He'd already made his decision. This was Sinatra's last night at the Copa. Maybe his last night anywhere. Sinatra saw it all. The turned heads, the whispered jokes, the couple near the stage who got up and left mid-song. He'd played to crowds of 10,000, sold out the Paramount for a month straight, and now he couldn't hold a room of 800 for 20 minutes. He finished the set. No encore. The applause died before he even left the stage. Backstage, Bill Miller was packing up his sheet music. Wouldn't look Sinatra in the eye. Jules Podell came down, handed Sinatra an envelope. Cash. $1,000. That's for tonight. We're done, Frank. Don't come back tomorrow. Sinatra didn't argue, just took the money and walked out the side exit into the November cold. No photographers, no fans, just garbage trucks and steam rising from the subway grates. He stood there in his tuxedo, holding $1,000 that wouldn't even cover this month's alimony, and thought about Ava's words. Something stable. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was it. 37 years old and finished. What Sinatra didn't know. At that exact moment, 3,000 miles away in Los Angeles, Dean Martin was listening to the radio. Winnie W., New York, broadcasting live Copa performances on a 5-minute delay. Dean heard every cracked note, every strained breath, every painful second. And while the rest of Hollywood was probably laughing, Dean Martin picked up his phone and dialed a number most people in the music business didn't even have. Capitol Records. Alan Livingston, head of A&R. It was 9:47 p.m. in LA. Livingston was home, probably in bed. The phone rang 4 times. Then a groggy voice. Hello? Dean Martin said 5 words that changed everything. I need you to sign him. Alan Livingston was not happy. Dean, it's almost 10 p.m. This better be good. It's about Frank Sinatra. Silence. Then a sigh. Dean, everybody knows Sinatra's finished. Columbia dropped him. His voice is shot. I heard tonight's Copa show on the radio. It was painful. I know. I heard it too. Then why are you calling me? Dean lit a cigarette. Because everybody's wrong. Livingston laughed. Wrong? Dean, the man can't sing anymore. Did you hear those cracked notes? The audience was talking over him. I heard a man who's desperate. And desperate men do 2 things, Alan. They either quit, or they come back harder than anyone expects. Sinatra's not a quitter. How do you know? Because quitters don't show up when their voice is gone. They cancel. They hide. Frank walked on that stage knowing he'd fail, and he did it anyway. That's not weakness. That's hunger. Livingston went quiet. Dean could hear him thinking. Capitol Records was growing, but they needed star power. They had Nat King Cole, but they needed someone who could cross over, someone with history, someone with a story. Even if you're right, Livingston said slowly. His voice is medically damaged. The hemorrhage, the strain. 6 weeks minimum recovery. Maybe permanent damage. Why would I sign someone who might never sing again? Dean took a drag. Because when he does come back, and he will, you'll own the biggest comeback in music history, and every other label will be kicking themselves for not taking the risk. That's a big gamble, Dean. I'll make it smaller. Sign him. Give him a 1-album deal. If his voice doesn't recover, you're out maybe $10,000. But if I'm right, if Sinatra comes back, You'll have him locked in before RCA or Decca even knows what happened. Another long silence. Why are you doing this? You barely know Sinatra. Dean stubbed out his cigarette. Because somebody should, and nobody else is. Livingston exhaled. Let me think about it. Don't think too long, Alan. Columbia just dropped him. He's vulnerable right now. Somebody's going to sign him eventually. Question is, do you want to be first or do you want to be sorry? The line went quiet for 10 seconds. Then Livingston said, I'll call him tomorrow. Dean smiled. Good. And Alan, when this works, remember who made the call. He hung up. 9:58 p.m., Los Angeles. 3,000 miles away, Frank Sinatra was standing in the freezing New York night, thinking his career was over. He had no idea someone he barely knew just saved it. November 8th, 1952. 2:14 p.m., Frank Sinatra's apartment, West 57th Street, New York. The phone rang. Sinatra almost didn't answer. He'd spent the morning reading reviews. Variety. Sinatra's voice a shadow of former glory. Billboard. A painful reminder that all careers have expiration dates. The New York Times didn't even review it. They just ran a 2-sentence item. Frank Sinatra performed at the Copacabana last night. The crowd was polite. Polite. The word that kills careers. He picked up the phone. Yeah, Mr. Sinatra, this is Alan Livingston, Capitol Records, head of A&R. Sinatra sat up. Capitol was big. Nat King Cole big. But why would they be calling him now? What can I do for you, Mr. Livingston? I heard about last night. The Copa. Sinatra's jaw tightened. Great. Another vulture calling to confirm the corpse. Yeah, well, word travels fast. It does. And I want to sign you. Silence. Sinatra thought he'd misheard. You want to what? Sign you. 1 album deal. We'll give you time to recover your voice. Work with our best arrangers. Pick your own songs. Capitol's building something new, Frank. We need someone with your talent. Sinatra looked at the Columbia termination letter still sitting on his coffee table. You heard last night's show, right? I couldn't hit a high note if my life depended on it. I heard a man who showed up when everyone else would have hidden. That takes guts. And guts, Mr. Sinatra, are harder to find than good vocal cords. Who put you up to this? Livingston paused. A friend. Someone who believes you're not done yet. What friend? I don't have any friends left in this business. You have one. He called me last night, right after your show. Said you'd come back harder than anyone expects. I'm betting he's right. Sinatra's throat tightened. Not from the vocal damage. From something else. Who? Dean Martin. The name hit him like cold water. Dean Martin. They'd met maybe twice. Polite handshakes at industry parties. They weren't friends. Weren't even close. Dean was still climbing. Still building his own career with Jerry Lewis. Why would he risk his reputation on a phone call for a washed-up singer he barely knew? Sinatra closed his eyes. Dean Martin called you last night. 9:47 p.m. Pacific. Wouldn't take no for an answer. For the first time in weeks, Frank Sinatra smiled. Not a big smile. Just enough. Mr. Livingston, when do we start? March 1953. Capitol Records Studio A, Los Angeles. Frank Sinatra stood in front of the microphone. 4 months of vocal rest. 4 months of silence. 4 months of wondering if Dean Martin had just made the worst bet of his career. Nelson Riddle, Capitol's arranger, raised his baton. The orchestra, 32 pieces, waited. Alan Livingston sat in the booth, arms crossed. This was it. The $10,000 gamble. If Sinatra's voice was still broken, Capitol would quietly bury the album and pretend this never happened. Sinatra closed his eyes, took a breath, and sang the first line of I've Got the World on a String. The note came out clear, strong, better than clear actually, richer, deeper, like the hemorrhage had forced him to sing from a different place, somewhere more vulnerable, more real. Nelson Riddle's eyes went wide. Livingston leaned forward in the booth. The orchestra kept playing, but you could feel it. Everyone in that room knew they were witnessing something. Sinatra finished the take. Silence. Then Riddle started clapping. The whole orchestra joined in. Livingston came out of the booth, hand extended. "Frank, that was... Where's Dean?" Livingston blinked. "What?" "Dean Martin. Where is he? I want to thank him." "I think he's at NBC, rehearsing the Colgate Comedy Hour with Jerry Lewis." Sinatra grabbed his coat. "Tell Riddle I'll be back in 2 hours. We'll finish the session then." He drove to NBC Burbank, found Dean backstage, running through a bit with Jerry. Sinatra walked up, and Dean turned, surprised. "Frank, I heard you're recording today. How did—" Sinatra grabbed him in a hug. Not a Hollywood hug, a real one. Dean froze for a second, then hugged back. When Sinatra pulled away, his eyes were wet. "Why'd you do it?" Dean shrugged. "Somebody had to. You barely knew me." "I knew enough." Dean lit a cigarette, offered one to Sinatra. "You walked on that stage when your voice was gone. That told me everything. You don't quit, and guys who don't quit, they're worth betting on." Sinatra took the cigarette. "I owe you." "You don't owe me anything. Just make a hell of an album." Sinatra smiled. "I will. And Dean, when it's done, you're the first person I'm sending a copy to. I'll be waiting." April 1954. Songs for Young Lovers released. Chart position, number 2. Follow-up album, In the Wee Small Hours, number 1. By 1955, Frank Sinatra wasn't just back. He was bigger than he'd ever been. And every album, every session, every sold-out show Sinatra remembered. When everyone turned their backs, one man made a phone call.